Cool.
I'm on an enemy-making tour
Well,
right
let
now.
me just get my screen caps going here to
Hey,
get the shit
Epi,
on
it's been
screen.
a while.
Yeah.
Here's another link in the live chat for you, 13.
Okay, let me see if I can get to that.
Gman requested video.
Yes, in a manner of speaking, yes, he just doesn't realize that he did. Let me see if I can get these folks here.
Who are the Shield Squad? They're those guys who wanted to be like rappers for
That's
Jesus.
the ones I'm trying to put in the side chat just now for you.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can send.
Too cold.
Okay, it's not. How do I send a message to people on this thing? They change this so often.
Because I've had to be told this a couple times. Shield Squad aren't those.
Here,
Black
I'll just have to
Hebrew Israelites,
follow
right?
them temporarily, I guess. There we go.
Shield Squad aren't those
Jump
Hebrew
back
Israelite
here.
guys, right?
Hang on, let me see if I can do this.
No, they're not Hebrew Israelites.
No. I can't
Christians.
I can't find surreal.
Yeah, I'm having a hard enough time figuring out how to message these folks.
Hold on a minute. Wait.
Yeah, so Max, did you miss G-Man spending a couple hours at least going at me?
I did. Yeah, I believe I did. What was he going at you about?
Oh, no, I guess it's an hour. I wasn't. Of course, it hasn't completely updated, so I'm not sure how long it was. I'm not a true Christian.
Join the club.
Yeah, you guys are heretics.
I'll just have to post it to their Google Plus thing because I can't figure this out right now, unfortunately.
Hey, Jay, I have a question.
Hold on. I may have found an old chat. Let me see who's in it.
Jade, I have a question.
Yep.
Right now, would you have preferred to keep your undisclosed status? Or are you okay with just admitting to being a Christian nowadays?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite get that, Jordy.
I said, would you prefer at this point right now to have kept your undisclosed status, or are you okay with just admitting to being a Christian nowadays?
No, I'm okay with admitting it. I
remember you and Brian used to be real big about the undisclosed.
Right, and part of the reason was because
I tried.
We wanted people to judge us on who we were and what we were saying, rather than some.
Ah, crap. There we go. Fix that. Sorry.
Yeah.
That's true.
Let's get this down here.
Because like you and Brian were essentially the reason why I like really didn't talk about like what I believed for a really long time either. Because like I was like, being undisclosed is sick. I love it.
Well,
you can sort of just have your personality and not have everyone base it on like, hey, you're a Christian or you're an atheist. Or
well,
whatever.
I had
love that.
honestly people deal with me more honestly before I don't want to say chose a designation. It was more chosen for me. I had people vote on it because I don't know. Do I count? It's kind of a weird thing in my case.
No, you count for nothing.
13. I have found faithful and consciousness.
Now, please extend a lovely invite to them because I would love to give my testimony on the sake of G-Man, or perhaps for the sake of G-Man. Honestly.
Right, I'll send them a message on G+, but just to those two, okay?
Oh, that'd be wonderful. I'd love it.
So, okay. So he doesn't consider Jade to be a true Christian. Anything else?
Well, that's the general crux of it, more so than anything else. Let me get my camera going on the stream side of this. You know, because you have to have the evil person on the screen, because apparently the fact that he deconverted my son makes me a bad parent.
Yeah, he deconverted your son?
G-Man did, yeah.
Wow.
Okay.
Weak.
Let me put this
Sorry.
Let me put this into a proper frame of reference, because I feel like and I was hoping if I could get a couple other folks in here that are on special invite list, but let me get this squared out of my way. My son, his mother decided that she was a Christian. she decided she was going to do the evangelical thing and all this other stuff and wanted my kids to be Christian and started trying to, we'll just say, push those ideologies and beliefs upon my children. I didn't really approve of this because, frankly, their mother, as far as I could tell, was only a Christian when it became convenient for her to do so after she met her current husband. But, people are going to go whichever path they want to follow, and if that's the way my son wanted to go, I wanted to support him in that. Um, my father-in-law and myself actually bought him one of those young learners Bibles, and my wife started taking him to varied churches, shopping around to see if we could find a version of Christianity that he was comfortable with.
Excuse
And
me, 13.
go for
Can
it.
I ask, do you want me to give them the link to the Hangout in this message?
Oh yeah, by all means.
Okay. Sorry about
Well,
that.
You should have let him talk to me so he could become Catholic. I kid.
Well,
But
okay.
not
The
really.
Catholic churches down here in Texas are going to be problematic, and with his mother and stepfather declaring themselves as fundamentalist conservative Christian, they wouldn't follow up with that anyway. Now, mind you, the two of them refused themselves to actually go to a church and haven't exactly done anything to try and bring the kids either, while still enforcing that they try to be Christian. So they weren't teaching them anything about Christianity while trying to insist that they were Christian than God believers. Which to me was absolutely bizarre, because if you're going to claim to be Christian, you should know something about Christian belief. So my wife, the one with a degree in world religion, decided to take this on, and we shopped around, as I said, for a couple of things, and we were looking at Methodism and a couple other churches in the area to see what he felt was a comfortable fit for him. And actually, the Methodist church we were taking to an old friend of hers from back when she was um, going to a church in the relative area, back when she was still going to the Methodist church. This guy was the bus driver of the little church camp and the youth group that she used to be a member of back in the day. Now, my wife is what I would consider an example of a good Christian. Um, she's good, she's decent, and she has those loving, empathic qualities, sitting there trying to help your fellow man. All the positive things you can get out of the Bible is kind of somewhere within her character and how she presents herself. The bigotry is not there, this and that. She's a follower of Christ in Christian terms. She's not a follower of Paul, which I think is the shortcoming of, well, frankly, most Christians, is they follow Paul, not following Jesus.
Hey, I'm a great example of a Pauline Christian.
But do you follow Paul over Jesus?
I followed. Wait.
What's more important to condemn
Well,
gay, for example, what's more important to try to condemn gay people or to love your neighbor?
well, first of all, the Bible in itself is the Bible itself as a whole is inerrant. Whether the Bible speaks through the words recorded through Christ or through the words recorded through Paul.
But of these two religious leaders from that faith, who would you say has priority, Paul or Jesus?
Jesus, but everyone says that.
Well, if you listen to the likes of Gman, I don't feel that's the case. They seem to think that whatever Paul says is far more important. Now, if you remember, there is actually that verse talking about one of the greatest sins you can do, being causing somebody to fall away from Christ. And that's exactly what G-Man did in relation to my son. Because while my wife is going through all these steps, trying to bring him up in the ways of the Lord and trying to explain to him and help teach him about Christianity, along with the help of my father-in-law, as well as the pastor of this church that had been the youth pastor and youth group minister back when my wife was going to the Methodist church. She would take him every weekend, sit with him, answer any questions he had along the way, explaining the actual theology of Christianity to him. And it was up to him to decide what he was and wasn't comfortable with. This is his thing, this is his journey. Now, we're more than happy to point out a few signposts and guide a little bit, but when it comes to the spiritual path, I've always been of the firm belief that someone must walk their own path, which to me makes it somewhat offensive when G-Man claims that I indoctrinated somebody and made them an atheist. To me, spirituality is a very personal matter and should not be intruded upon. Everyone should be basically encouraged to walk their own path, no matter where it may lead.
Well, yeah, I would agree with what you said. I don't consider you to be indoctrinating anyone, nor do I consider you to be interfering. And I think we can both agree that there should be no compulsion in religious conviction.
Well,
Otherwise,
in the
it's
case
not a
of
true.
my wife, it's often fundamentalist, extreme conservative fundamentals within her family that put her in the position of having crises of faith, and I'm the one that's always there to reinforce it. Just like my discussions with you, well, I might throw jabs jokingly asking you if you're still Christian or not. If you ever did actually deconvert, I'd be horrified because I'd have no one to spar with anymore. I mean, the simple fact of the matter is I enjoy, in some ways, helping you refine your arguments. I helped you prepare for that slavery debate, for crying out loud.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that.
I prefer, my attitude is, if I get you to ask questions that strengthen your faith, good. If they damage your faith, fine. But either way, if you haven't explored your own faith, it's empty.
That is all true.
And I feel G-Man's faith is very empty. Now, the thing that really frustrates me in terms of him, though, is there's one thing he can't accept. Now, we had my son a good way down this journey of spirituality, of learning about Christianity, learning what it was to be Christian, learning the notion of Christian values and many of the lessons of Jesus. And he was starting to enjoy that and starting to really identify that way. And then he walked into the room one day when I had a video playing, and he says, "Who's that?" I said, "That's G-Man." He's like, "Well, who's he?" I'm like, "He's just a Christian on YouTube." Well, my son then went back to his room and watched a couple of G-Man videos, and within 3 videos decided that he didn't want to be Christian if G-Man was Christian. He didn't want to be associated with someone like that. And this is a reality that G-Man simply refuses to accept. G-Man is responsible for deconverting my son from Christianity. Singularly responsible.
Well, I could speak for everyone. Well, I think I can speak for most Christians when I say thanks a lot, G-Man. Although I do think that I would hope that nobody goes to or leaves a position because somebody who sucks shares that position.
Well, think
I
of it.
mean,
Well, here's the thing, though. I mean, you can say that, and that's fine. And I could have hooked him up with Jade, with Fiona, with Holy, with yourself, with so many different decent, good Christians online that show a good example of what it is to be, well, Christ-like. And the way I was raised in the Roman Catholic Church, the notion of following Jesus wasn't simply giving lip service to it or trying to condemn people to hell. It was trying
Bingo.
to
right?
present an example of what it is to be Christian, to try to become as Christ-like as you can, to follow that example in your walking life. Now that you might have the grace and works and this and that argument going on back to antiquity, but at the same point, if you do not show these qualities in yourself when approaching people, if you don't show an example of what it is to be Christian, and instead you're somebody like G-Man, you're not teaching the gospel, you're just screaming rhetoric at people. The gospel is supposed to be this living document that can be seen through the deeds of his faithful.
Yes. However, he gets around that problem by claiming that that would be works.
And this is why I call him a heretic, because the notion of grace is that you may be saved through grace. Once you are saved, your works should naturally become more Christ-like. This is the notion.
Exactly. And if anybody wants to know the value of that, all we have to do is read Matthew 25, the sheep and the goats,
Yeah.
what the decision is based on.
There was a
And
verse a while ago, and I can't remember it offhand, that I was trying to chase down with Epi a while back when my wife had her last crisis of faith. And in this verse, it basically says that the worst thing that is essentially one of the worst, it's on the worst sin list, is to basically make someone fall away from Christ. Now, this
hold on,
can,
I can find it.
okay, now this could be something like, forcing someone to take somebody else's life, forcing somebody else to sin. But one of the worst things you can do, according to Jesus and the Bible, is force someone else to sin.
Okay, got it.
Well,
Matthew 18:6.
If you'd be so kind as to
Look,
read that for me.
sorry?
If you'd be so kind as to read that for me, Fiona.
Yeah, I think that's the right one. That's
That's
the
not-
millstone round the neck.
Yep.
Yep, got it. Okay, here we go. It's from the Gospel of Matthew, and for some reason, this blasted thing is misbehaving. Hold up. Right, let's just pull up the whole of Matthew. Right, here we go. This is what it says. It's verse 6 that's the one that's important. But what I'll do is I'll read it from verse 1
Oh, by all
so
means.
that you have context, okay?
I'm not afraid of a
So-
little religion in my hangouts. Go for it.
At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" He called a little child to him and placed the child among them. And he said, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to stumble."
Now, this is something that the atheist side of me, if I were hearing it in isolation, would want to grumble at a little bit. But the point of the verse is not simply that you shouldn't have somebody question their faith or question why they believe a thing. It's a matter of putting a person in a place that they will sin, that they have no choice but to turn away or feel that they don't, whether it be during a short time period or longer.
Well, if I
And
go
that's
on
Gman
then,
in a nutshell. Go for it.
but if I go on a wee bit, you sort of get to that bit. So we finished off with drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to stumble. Such things must come, but woe to the person through whom they come. If your hand or foot causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life maimed or crippled than have 2 hands or 2 feet and be thrown into the eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into the fire of hell. So that's the bit about, if thine eye offends thee. I've been reading it from the New International Version. So if your hand causes you to sin or your eye causes you to sin, and this is all coming in the same context as causing one of these little ones to stumble.
Can I read another verse in the Bible that essentially has the same kind of message?
Oh, please, why not? We're doing a little bit of a vague Bible study today. I love when atheists run those. Go for it.
Let us not therefore judge one another anymore, but judge this rather, that no man put a stumbling block or an occasion to fall in his brother's way. Romans chapter 14, verse 13. And that was a little bit of Paul agreeing with a little bit of Jesus.
Yeah, and Paul does agree with Jesus on some things, but there are some areas where I personally would argue that Paul, having grown up as, in Hebrew tradition, being part of the Sanhedrin for a while, if I remember correctly, there are certain biases from that he carries forth into his teachings that I don't find them to be completely consistent with Jesus. And one of these being the thing pertaining to homosexuality, which admittedly, if you actually look at that in the original Greek, it's talking about temple prostitution, not actual homosexuality, but that's something that wasn't translated into any of the later editions.
But the thing I always go back to is that God himself actually directly spoke in the person of Jesus. How on earth can Paul trump that?
Exactly.
The only way that Paul came to be a Christian was because he was on the road to Damascus and God barbecued his donkey.
That's a cute way to put it. Poor donkey.
I should also add, just because Jesus is silent on a particular issue doesn't mean that he therefore encouraged it or was for it. Jesus so doesn't mention.
We also don't know whether Jesus would have come out against it or not. If he's silent on it, we don't necessarily know. Paul is talking really, in that particular instance, in some degree, about the old Hebrew view towards it.
Yeah.
Well, even so, just as a point of reference, Paul himself also says after that verse I quoted, "I am now persuaded by the Lord Jesus that there is nothing unclean to itself, but to him that esteemeth anything to be unclean, to him it is unclean. But if thy brother grieve with thy meat, now walkest thou not charitably, destroy not him with thy meat, for whom Christ died. Essentially, he's saying, don't let the Jewish customary laws stop people from becoming Christians. And
There you go.
right.
Yeah.
And I think Paul, if he does have some bias towards his Jewish roots, is still not someone who lets that gets in the way of the gospel, at least as far as I know. And in terms of homosexuality within the Bible, I would contest the reading of that as temple
Well,
prostitution.
Well, you can contest that all you want, but I've talked with linguists and they seem to concur with that. But regardless, I don't want to go down that rabbit hole right now. I
Fair
mean,
enough.
ultimately, the point is that, regardless of who somebody loves or this and that, if all sins are equal, why point that one out?
Because it takes because all mortal sins take one out of a state of grace. If done willingly.
Yet, at the same point, it is known by the Lord that we are all sinners.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so here's kind of the thing is, if the Lord makes someone in such a way that they are attracted to the same gender, why would the Lord necessarily hold that against them? It's, everyone has their sins that they must deal with. Everyone has their shortcomings.
Right. But to be
But
fair,
sitting there and holding that one up as all these people will be damned, even though they're made that way, I think is incongruent with the idea of a loving God.
No, one isn't damned for being born and being born a homosexual and being attracted to those of the same sex. It's only those who act upon it. I mean, there are people who are born with proclivities towards the underage because their prefrontal cortex.
Okay, we're not going down slippery slopes with this, Happy.
I'm not. I'm just saying it's not a condition to say that just because one is natural attracted towards some being that therefore it is okay for something to take place. The argument requires more than that.
Well, anyway, Fiona.
Yeah, I know that very often when you will say to someone you shouldn't judge, they'll say, oh no, we're told to judge righteously. And I was wanting to check that that's coming from John 7. Let me just check for the verse.
The weirdness
John
with the "thou shalt not judge," yet everyone claiming that
No,
they're judging righteously.
I want to get this bit first, though.
Sorry,
John 7:24, which says, "Judge not according to the appearance, but judge righteous judgment." Now, are there any other references to righteous judgment? And I'm bringing this up for a reason.
I don't know.
Because I didn't find any when I was looking, but maybe Epi knows of one. But anyway, that's the one that from the teachings of Christ himself.
But here's the thing is, what I'm wondering is there a point at which Jesus said that people that sleep with people of the same sex should basically tie a millstone around their neck and drown themselves?
No. But the point I was making was that verse about righteous judgment is often brought up. If you bring up Matthew 7, Matthew 7 is, do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, let me take the speck out of your eye, when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite! First, take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye.
What amazes me, if I can just get back to G-Twit for one moment, is the fact that he will simply not, he will go down to the point of trying to insult me and my parenting and claiming I'm forcing some kind of dogma on people after turning my son away from Christ, which I think could be argued as being a greater sin than any he's calling anyone out for.
Well, yeah, I think that's the thing, because if we go to, let's just say, righteous judgment, say, oh no, we are allowed to judge. It says you have to judge righteously. So then you have to ask the question, what is righteous judgment? And Matthew 7 tells you what that is. That once you're without sin, then you can judge the sins of others. And you're never going to be without sin, are you?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And the only one who can judge is God himself. And
in a way, if we make that judgment, aren't we putting ourselves in the place of God to do so?
Yes. And what left me gobsmacked today was when he actually said, what Jade needs to do to convince me is, and said that she needs to go into TST and preach the gospel and all the rest of it. And I thought to myself, but wait a minute. What does it matter whether she convinces you or not? This may be news to you, but the G in your name doesn't stand for God. You are not God. Why would Jade need to convince you? Why would she be bothered what you think of her faith?
Yet at the same point, he claims that atheists are their own God when he's propping himself as that if he is the mouthpiece of God himself.
Yeah. And that's a problem that I have because, I mean, you earlier on said, you know, you were listing me in the list of what you called good Christians.
Yeah.
Far from it. Far from it. No.
Do you do your best to try to follow Christ's example?
Yes, but there are times when I will say, I know I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to bloody do it anyway.
But
I mean, later on, I'll regret it.
I don't think we're expected to be perfect, though.
I know that. I know. But I think it's hard to see my name in a list of people who are good Christians when I know what I'm like.
But here's
because I know everything I'm getting wrong all the time.
But that puts you one step ahead of people like Gman and what have you that insist they're doing the right thing even when they're doing wrong.
And can I also make this very, very clear right now? I am not for a minute questioning whether Gman is a Christian or not. That I am not doing that because that's not my place to judge.
I think he's a poor example of what it is to walk the Christian life.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean he isn't a Christian, and that's I want to make that really, really clear that I am not doing that because to judge someone's faith, to judge their true faith, you need to be able to see into their mind and into their heart.
Oh, I thought it was funnier still when he decided to reference my faith, and I don't even know what term he tried using. He just pulled something weird out.
Anabolic atheist.
Anabolic atheist. Yeah.
Anabolic.
Anabolic.
Oh, let's see now. It's anabolic steroids, and what's the other kind of steroids? What?
Yeah, you're an anabolic atheist.
Yeah. Okay. I've never identified as such. I don't know what that would even mean. So, yeah, good luck with that.
What's a Judas goat?
Oh, hang on. Let me get the puppets. I might have to rename the bully goat to Judas goat. This is fun.
Is that what Samson used the job? Never mind.
I'm not dragging him off the hook right now. He's buried under the other ones. But yeah, the bully goat, I might rename to Judas goat just for G-Man's sake for the day.
Out of curiosity, these are insults we're getting from the live chat?
No. This G-Man did a hangout, which was apparently just to insult Jade and to try to bait her into reading scripture in TST.
Exactly.
And to insult her.
He thinks it's tonight. Can I also please let me add this one thing?
Oh, please.
Sorry.
If his entire diatribe today has been inspired by God, then why didn't God tell him today is Monday and not Tuesday? He's convinced talking shit Tuesdays tonight.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Monday is Tuesday, is it not?
Well, it might be that the voice he's listening to might not be God's. It's as simple as that.
He's probably under demonic influences because he's a Protestant.
Oh, Lordy, Max.
Hey, I mean, I know that's a douchey claim to make. I'm sorry, but
no, it was funny though. It was funny. That counts.
But I'd say G-Man's what's called a separated brother, and he's a he's a Christian in the loose sense that his baptism is probably valid because it was Trinitarian in nature.
Yeah, I threw a couple deep insults out there, so I know that I kind of got his goat because I made comments like, well, you may be claiming to know Jesus. Jesus clearly does not know you, unless you referenced that one line in which it simply said Jesus wept.
Uh,
I was a
Yeah.
little scathing, I admit, but it was fun and I think well deserved because, yeah, he's the people that he's cruelest with. Because I know he'll claim that he goes after atheists and all this other nonsense, but the people he's truly always been cruelest to are other believers.
I
Yeah,
mean,
he's-
remember when he was cruel to the Calvinists because he didn't agree with their theology, and obviously how he's cruel to Catholics all the time, and then he's just cruel to, Christians who aren't young Earth creationists.
Yeah, I mean, it's this kind of like I'm just going to be frankly a jerk to everyone. This is part of what made my son say, if this is what being a Christian is, I don't want any part of it. And
Yeah,
if he later decides he wants to explore that path, there are people in our community that I'm going to have him talk with. I mean, my wife will certainly be able to guide him as well, but the people that I'd have him talk to are the same people I have my wife talk to when she's frustrated with family members that are being cruel and dogmatic and being, we'll just say, unchristlike.
tell Red she's welcome.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah,
I
you're one of
can't-
them. You've helped her a few times, and
I have.
with Fiona and
See,
Jade,
I
it's been
only-
timing, but they'd be
just
on the
like
list.
I just like her on. I just like having her on my Facebook wall. She has some interesting posts from time to time.
See, I only, if I'm talking to anybody, I will only talk about my personal faith because I'm in absolutely no position to preach to anyone. And this is something else that really annoys me. We never hear you preaching. Well, no, because I don't stand up and put on a preachy voice and say it. But
Well,
here's the thing:
in a way, that's
if
heretical too.
if you are going to say to people, this is what you have to do, then you better be sure you're right. Because if you're not, you're going to lead them astray.
Oh yeah,
And that will be on you.
millstone and all.
And I am not in any way qualified to take on the responsibility that's involved in that. No way. I will take responsibility for my own faith. And then if I am getting it completely wrong, I'm the one that pays the price. But if I'm getting it completely wrong, I don't want others paying the price of my ignorance.
Here.
I agree. It kind of amazes me that some people think they could just pick up a Bible, read it, maybe not even read it all the way through, and then decide that they have a ministry.
And clearly not understand it,
I-
especially in his case.
If it's
No, and I also find it amusing that in that that rant against me, which I found hilarious, Gman complains at the same time that I'm not teaching, but that women shouldn't teach.
Yes.
It's hysterical.
Yeah, I've noticed that as well. He's called me out for years for not preaching. And then I put up a video, I can't remember what the video was, and he called me out for daring to preach. And I thought, you can't win with this guy. You're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't. And he gets to do the damning.
You
Yeah.
see, Fiona, what you should have done was you should have wrote a script for your husband, who was the proper man to talk in that position.
Oy vey, don't even.
I'm being,
Let's skip
being
the bad jokes for the moment, but yeah.
sorry.
Well, you were saying that about Sabella today in that hangout as well.
I tried inviting her. I actually like Sabella. There are certain points, of course, where I disagree with her, but there's a certain level of integrity that she shows that I think is worthy of reference. Because there was one occasion that she put out something that all you people complaining about Trump, blah blah blah. I'm like, how long did you complain about Obama? She's like, oops, yep, you got a point and pulled the post. I thought that showed a lot of character.
Yeah,
Yep.
it does. But the other thing that always comes to me is this: the first shall be last, and the last shall be first.
Yeah.
And the prodigal son, and the son who stayed faithful to his father, his nose was put out of joint because of all the celebrations of the return of the prodigal son.
Yeah, my father
it
would
was this
tease me, calling me
return.
the prodigal son sometimes. I appreciated the reference.
Mhm.
But it was the fact that the return was worth celebrating.
Yeah.
And I struggle sometimes to understand, in a way, I'm going to end up going back to Matthew 25, the sheep and the goats, that's where we forever get this out of context. Not everyone who calls me Lord. You know the one I'm talking about.
Oh, yeah. The one that the likes of G-men tend to tout around to claim that, well, not all people that claim to be Christian are actually Christian.
Yeah.
And this is, in some ways, how that separation between grace and works comes into play. Because if they're walking a Christian path, there should be something in their behavior that indicates it, right?
I'm pulling it up right now. And I'm using the New International Version just because that's what's coming up. Because I can't be bothered changing it to the King James.
And frankly, it's easier to understand for an audience, so
Yeah.
I think that that's a good thing.
Yeah. But this is what, because we were talking about the Judas goat, remember? But we come to the parable of the sheep and the goats, where all the nations are gathered and they get separated into the sheep on the right and the goats on the left. And then the sheep on the right are told, "Come, you who are blessed by my Father, take your inheritance, the kingdom prepared for you since the creation of the world. For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was a stranger and you invited me in. I needed clothes and you clothed me. I was sick and you looked after me. I was in prison and you came to visit me." And then they will say, wait a minute. When did we see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you something to drink? When did we see you a stranger and invite you in, or needing clothes and clothe you? When did we see you sick or in prison and go and visit you? And the king will reply, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." But then he turns to the ones on the left and says, "Depart from me, you who are cursed, into the eternal fire prepared for the devil and his angels." And he says they didn't do any of that. And they will say, "But when did we see you like that and not feed you or clothe you and etc.?" And the answer is, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did not do for one of the least of these, you did not do for me."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But there is absolutely nothing in G-Man's presentation that nurtures a person's soul. Instead, he seeks to strike out at it and tear down those that should be his brothers and sisters in Christ.
Yeah.
And now I might be an atheist. I don't believe in a God in any meaningful way or any of this other stuff. But I do have a sense of the divine, we'll just say. And G-Man shows none of those qualities that I think could all be attributed to being divine in any meaningful way. And as such, I find him to be one of the most objectionable people on here, because he is one of the few people that has put me in the position time and time again of having to defend Christians, which you'd think that he would want to defend as being his brothers and sisters. Instead, he tries to crucify the faithful.
Because this takes us back again to Matthew 7. "Not everyone who says to me, 'Lord, Lord,' will enter the kingdom of heaven. Many will say to me on that day, 'Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and in your name drive out demons, and in your name perform miracles?' Then I will tell them plainly, 'I never knew you. Away from me, you evildoers.'"
All good, Epi.
And if you take that and you look at Matthew 25, it tells you what you should be doing. Feeding the hungry.
And you can actually extend this further, because there's more than simply nurturing the body. There's also nurturing the mind, nurturing the spirit. And these are the areas where he really does sin. And I say that in the classical meaning of missing the mark. I don't even think he's aiming at the target.
So when somebody says, "I'm doing all these things in the name of God," and yet they are not ministering to the most basic needs of others,
No.
they're ignoring that completely, then what? And that brings us all the way back to the last shall be first and the first shall be last. And those that think they are the sheep turn out to be the ones that are the goats. And the ones that thought they were the goats turn out to be the sheep.
Well, there's also that line in the Bible that basically tells people that they should pray in private instead of being like the Pharisees and Sadducees who go out and make a big display of it to be seen, and that is exactly what G-Man does.
I mean, yeah. Hey guys, I'm just gonna head off to bed right now.
Okay, well, I know you're having connection issues. Take care, man. I'll catch you later.
You too. Good luck with your discussion, guys.
It's been fun. It was nice to have
Okay.
you.
It's some Beppy.
But that's the thing, though, is I find that the likes of G-Man drives more people away than it does invite, because you're not inviting people into your home, so to speak, metaphorically or otherwise. You're not inviting people into your family. You're not calling out to your brothers and sisters and offering to hold them in your embrace. Instead, you're just yelling and screaming at them and telling them they're not family, and that's not a good thing in religion or in actual family. You know, when my son decided he wanted to be a Christian, I didn't say, get out of my house and freak out. That's something that's reserved for the extremist, zealot Christians like, well, G-Man, that throw people out for that. I mean, my kids, short of going out and like murdering somebody, I'm going to love them and treasure them. And unless they cross certain lines, it's virtually unconditional.
I've always been of the opinion that let's just go with G-Man's idea that people are tossed into this lake of fire, and God does the tossing into the lake of fire. If God is doing that, then the God that I know will weep as he does it.
Yeah. Jesus wept. Shortest line
He
in the
will
Bible.
weep at everyone that was lost, because it also tells you that the shepherd never stops looking for that lost sheep. Never. Because he wants to find that lost sheep. He won't just say, oh, well, it serves it right.
Well, I don't know. I think a better analogy with G-Man is he sees a sheep wandering away from the flock and he starts yelling and screaming at them and chasing them with a stick until they drive themselves over the cliff.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, he may be doing it for the best of reasons, but he's doing it in the worst of ways. He's driving people away. And also, he is passing judgment on their faith. And that is not his place. He doesn't get to shove God off his throne of judgment.
Normally when I run these kind of hangouts and I decide that I'm going to get into the actual theology, I try to surround myself with what I see as the best Christianity has to offer. And in that regard, I find him grossly wanting.
No golden gorilla for G-Man.
Yeah, no golden gorilla at all. Oh, incidentally, I'm going to briefly mention for those outside, I'm still trying to get my act together with this. I'm hoping to do an award ceremony in the upcoming future that and we're going to be looking for nominees for this, and it's referred to as the Golden Gorilla Award, named in honor of IG, Inventor Gorilla, and it's for people that are, well, frankly, Christians that show the good side of Christianity, those that are Christ-like, those people that they will be invited into the hangout, and even if it's a room full of atheists, whenever somebody makes a comment disparaging Christianity, we always hold these people up as the exceptions because we find them to be good and righteous and decent.
Human Christians.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah.
Are you essentially saying nice people who happen to be Christians?
You got it, pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
Decent people that are Christian and aren't just, well, frankly, assholes in the name of Christ like G-Man is?
Well, actually, that's not necessarily true, because IG really loved to troll, but he was just a really, really, really nice guy.
But at the same point, he kept laughing, and he hoped people would learn something from it, and when people were ready to come and talk to him, he always would.
Yeah.
He was always there with an olive branch.
Could I just because
please,
G-Man has been on this rant today, I am going to do my bit of preaching the gospel, and I'm not going to take an hour to do it.
No, please do.
I'm just I'm just going to say John 3:16 or 19, whichever one it is. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in him shall not perish, but have everlasting life. And that is the gospel message in a nutshell. And it took, what, 10 seconds?
Yeah, but I want to throw something else out there pertaining to you directly. There was there was an occasion a while back in which there were a bunch of Christians in one of Xbox's hangouts, and they were all going through Jesus wants this, God wants that. Yeah, the usual that you see, putting themselves in the place of God, judging others, and throwing their voices out there. And I went down the line and referenced a line in Galatians in which it basically says everyone should be able to speak their own gospel. And I went down the line and it was hellfire, burn, repent, burn, repent. And then I got to Fiona, and Fiona's was all about love.
I remember that.
I remembered very profoundly. That to me is the greater part of judgment in terms of who it is that's more Christ-like or holds towards that ideal that Christians claim at least to follow, is that with you, your message is all about love and acceptance and not about you're going to burn unless you believe exactly what I do. And that to me was far more Christ-like and holy or godly, if you want to put it, divine even, than anything any of the others had to say. I appreciated that a lot.
Jesus said, you've heard it said that you should hate your enemies, but I tell you to love your enemies. Because it's easy to love your brothers and your sisters and your family, etc. It's easy. It's not so easy to love your enemy. That's a hard thing to do.
Well, part of loving your enemy is making them so they're no longer your enemy by learning to understand them and come to a common ground.
Yeah. But
yelling up and down and screaming, "You're evil! You're going to burn!" Ugh. Anyway, go ahead, Fiona.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing I do not get. Is why bring about and the word that kept coming into my head when I was listening to this unhinged rant today. It was words hateful and hate-filled.
Yeah.
Now, that's just, I mean, I'm not saying that he hates, but dislikeful and dislike-filled aren't words. So it's the closest I can get. But that's what it was all about. This wasn't about correcting, showing someone the correct way. This was about beating them with a great big stick with a nail on the end, or ripping their arm off and beating them with a wet end.
Whether it be enemy or brother or sister in Christ. I mean, Gman has never shown love. He just doesn't show the love of the Lord. He shows just the hatred of, well, what character would that be? I'm not sure.
Because I don't think Gman has any empathy at all.
Well, he doesn't. He hasn't grasped that what he should when he talks about rebuke. I mean, when Christ talks about that, he was talking about correcting. Now, you cannot correct someone if you're not actually telling them the correct way, if all you're doing is beating them with a big stick. And then you can't correct them if you are unaware of what is correct. And that's something that I find he struggles with. Because he was saying about Jade. Jade needs to repent of what? Of being homosexual. And I don't know how many times people put into the live chat, Jade is celibate.
I put it in 3 times alone.
Right.
And Holly put it in twice.
Right. That was ignored. That was ignored.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not the actual act that he is calling a sin if he's just ignoring it, unless he doesn't know what celibate means, which is always possible.
That's true.
Yeah, good point. I hadn't thought of that one.
But he seems to think that you have to repent for being homosexual, even if you are celibate. Now, I have a big problem with that, because of all the things we've been finding out about the genetic basis of it. That would be like telling somebody, and I don't mean this to be insulting, but it's the best way to get it across. It's like telling someone who has got Down syndrome or someone with spina bifida that they must repent for having Downs or spina bifida.
I'd like to actually take it one step further. It's like telling somebody that they must repent for being the way that God made them, based upon his own
Right.
theology.
Yeah. But
But
I mean,
I'd
I
just
hope
like
nobody takes that the wrong way. It's the best way of putting it that I've come across, and I don't want it to sound as if I'm saying that people who are homosexual are in some way disabled, because I'm not saying that at all.
No.
But
Anyway,
Yeah,
it's just a way of getting the idea across.
one second,
Right.
Jade.
I was just going to say, I understand that. I understand what Fiona's saying, and she's right. But what I wanted to say is, I don't hate G-Man. If he thinks I do, well, he's completely mistaken. I have no hatred for him whatsoever. I actually feel sorry for him. He's wrapped up in this anger, and I feel sorry for him. And if he wants to make me his enemy, I guess he could do that. But I don't consider him my enemy. He doesn't have that much power over me.
Mm-hmm.
And the big stick he thinks he's wielding has less effect on me than if it was a Nerf stick.
Yeah, the funny thing is he started talking about, being healthy and all this other stuff, and then saying that he's sure somebody's going to make a video or whatever. And I think he was baiting me, so I decided, why not? I'll just do it anyway.
Yeah.
Now the simple fact matters, no, I'm not healthy. My health issues are things that are genetic, I have no control over, and I find a little bit of annoyance that the Christian, that in theory should be showing compassion for such people, like Jesus did with healing the blind and the lepers, etc. Instead, he's sitting there being insulting towards them because he doesn't know what it's like to even attempt to be Christ-like.
Yeah, and I have health issues too, and several of them stem from the damned measles that I got when I was a kid, and other infections I had. I was sick this weekend because the glands in my neck just flared up again, great big huge golf balls in my neck. And that has happened ever since I was a child because I'm very susceptible to things like that. My eustachian tubes are nothing but scar tissue. So they close up with the least little bit of infection. That causes fluid to build up. But yeah, there's a whole cycle of things that happen that I'm familiar with. So, I've had arthritis since I was a child. The suspicion is that with everything else I also had rheumatic fever, just what I noticed. So yeah, I've got some health issues too. But that's just the way it is. And we just deal with them, It's that's all there is to it. Everybody can't be the perfect physical specimen. And G-Man, everybody can't be the perfect mental specimen either.
It's like you just read my
Well,
mind.
the thing is, though, because I want to kind of throw this out there, because, well, I think sentiments like "I'll pray for you" are empty in many regards, and I think that it's usually kind of thrown out there in lieu of actually doing something, or because you know that you're powerless and it's all you have to offer is basically your positive thoughts, your well wishes, this kind of thing. But not once does he even offer those thoughts to somebody that, okay, here's somebody that's suffering, that's ill and is suffering to some degree. It's never, I'll keep you in my thoughts and prayers, or I'll keep you in my thoughts. It's convert.
I don't think G-Man has any empathy. I don't think he really cares about anybody but himself.
I think you might be
He doesn't
right.
care.
Hmm.
He doesn't act like he cares, so
He doesn't even care about Jesus or God,
A
in my
decent
opinion.
sentiment from him towards any other human being would be kind of nice for a change, frankly.
I'm trying to figure out which drug he took to make him believe this, because you'd have to take something real deep
Well,
to make him think like he does.
this is why I was more than happy to go after him in his little chat there, calling him a hypocrite and all this other stuff. Is frankly his presentation of Christianity. This may be weird coming from an atheist, but his presentation of Christianity offends me on behalf of Christians because I have more respect for that book and their beliefs than he seems to.
Yeah.
Yeah, but from what I've seen of him, he's not. He doesn't even care about Jesus or God, in my opinion. He's not there to glorify Jesus or God. He's there to glorify himself. Look at me. Look what a good Christian I am. I am a good Christian. Everyone else is a bad Christian, except like there's only 4 Christians in the world.
I'm
You
on
know,
club.
me and 3 other people I know. But he doesn't glorify God.
I'm
He
on club.
glorifies himself.
Yeah.
I'm not charging. Sorry, I'm talking to my husband.
That's what I was saying. I was saying that's what a lot of drugs do to you. They point you towards yourself, and he thought that was God, apparently.
Yet at the same point when I commented that he knows nothing about my actual beliefs, his comment was that I think I'm my own God or something like that because I'm an atheist, which, no, certainly not. And that's a finger he should be turning around and figuring out where it's actually pointing because he might find a mirror in front of himself.
The surgic acid does this. Like LSD does these things.
It seems to me that he wants to redefine what the word God means. And in the process, he's managed to define God out of existence.
He's certainly diminishing the term and the meaning behind it.
Yeah. Because now all that a God is your final authority. Well, when you're at work, your final authority is your boss. Is your boss God?
Mm.
Right. And the other ridiculous argument was when he said that he's saying you have to
An airbase in serious
sorry.
debunk every god, right? And he said there are some people who think that the planet itself is a god. Are you denying the existence of the planet? You have to deny the existence of the planet in order to still call yourself an atheist. Then I thought, no, you have to deny that the planet is God.
That sounds like that other guy. What's
Like
his
guy
name?
or something.
It's as weak an argument as claiming that since the God concept exists, therefore God exists. It's just,
yes.
It's a meaningless definition of God. It absolutely is.
Yeah. So it is,
sorry. Go on.
no, just it's whatever anybody calls a God. If you cannot prove it doesn't exist, then you can't call yourself an atheist. So to be an atheist, according to this argument, you would have to disprove the existence of planet Earth.
Oh, sorry. Doesn't he also? Oh, sorry. I thought you finished.
Sorry, it was me pausing. He's but somehow bypassed this bit about you would also need to believe that planet Earth is a god. He's missed that bit of it, and I don't get it.
Doesn't he also think that, like, when we like certain pop stars or actors or that we worship them, therefore we think they're our god? Or am I confusing him with Rand Campbell there? They probably both say that crap, don't they? Of like, oh well, if you worship your favorite artist or whatever. I'm like, I don't think you know what the word worship means.
There was, I found a while back, and I didn't save it, but there was a.
Oh, hang on a second.
Okay,
sorry.
There was.
I'm sorry, that was for the internal. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. There was. I found a Christian apologetic online that used that argument that atheists can't be atheists because there are secular gods. There are, if you yourself are a god, atheists view themselves as gods, or Satanists view themselves as gods, that you cannot be an atheist. So he didn't originate that. He got that from someplace else.
Hang on just one second. Wolf King, your invite has been sent. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail the entire conversation with that.
But yeah, I've heard similar arguments. Now I come to think of it, it's like, again, it comes back to this. If you want people to follow what you're saying, it helps if you use the most well-known meanings of words. Don't just make up meanings of words in your head.
Mm-hmm.
If you mean something else by worship or God than what other people mean, then don't be surprised when they think you're talking crap. A god literally means, if like, excuse me, doesn't a god have to be a supernatural being? So even if I worshipped my husband, even if I worshipped David Bowie, they are still not a god because, to the best of my knowledge, they are not supernatural beings.
Yeah.
My husband is a super being, but he's not a supernatural being.
That's really cute, actually.
I know. And he's not even here.
That's adorable.
Yeah, I saw you make a comment about his big truncheon.
Of course.
We tried
Yeah,
She
to-
you're-
did, she did.
We were talking about somebody said you should be as armed as much as the policemen are. So I said my husband has a truncheon. I didn't use the word big. I don't think actually.
What's a truncheon? From the Brits, please.
Oh.
A nightstick. That
Oh,
doesn't help.
okay.
Yeah. Oh, it didn't
That's
cross my
even
mind.
worse.
Sir. Yes, I definitely wasn't going to put that. Oh my gosh. I mean, no, I'm not.
Nightstick.
His is an old base.
Um,
No.
well, in
that
theory,
gives
you
me a
should have gotten
vision.
it. I don't know.
Yeah, that gives me a vision of your husband confronting some burglar and whipping open his robe.
Yeah.
Hey, if it works for you.
Truncheon.
Oh my.
Here we go. Just put the join link in there to heck with it, just in case.
You guys are all going to hell.
Yeah, you're heretics and sinners.
Go straight to hell, boy. Ooh, phony. I just sang some Clash.
Oh no.
Oh, gee.
No.
No.
I better sing some Pink Floyd to make up for it.
Try that.
Oh no. Yeah. Party in hell. Who's bringing the beer? Who's bringing the beer?
One of the comments said that we'd be plunged into eternal darkness in the lake of fire, and I couldn't
yes.
figure out how
Oh,
dark
yeah.
it would be if there was a lot of fire.
Where's the lake
Sure.
of fire? I want a tan.
Sure, stop speaking with your mouth full.
Sinners.
Oh.
Ah, dear. How does
Try this one last
Gman
time.
not know that this is in fact hell?
I don't know.
Could be. This
Okay,
could be.
I in theory sent the invite, Wolf. I'm not sure if you got it or not. I'm having some weird issues with Google not cooperating on my end, but I did send from regular Hangout.
Google is a pain in the neck at the moment.
Yeah, yeah, they need to stop being, well, anyway, the way they are, we'll just say. Actually, I will just briefly add that join link in the damn description and be done with it, I guess.
For real though, I really do think Gman has actually taken something because, like, as a recipient of LSD, I've had you have those godlike experiences. You're like, oh, that's interesting, and then you're like, oh, that's me. Okay, I get it, and then you continue with your shit.
I think it's more along the line of Homer Simpson. I think he shoved a crayon up his nose so far. As
Are you sure it was his nose?
Okay.
I think he was dropped on his head.
Could have been multiple crayons.
I think his
He
head
was
was
dropped on his head
him.
as an adult.
Incidentally,
maybe like his associates or something.
hang on. Incidentally, I have added to the description the join link. Feel free to refresh and join if you'd like. I'm probably not going to be running this too much longer because it was addressed to somebody that has a very short attention span.
He's
That's
not gonna
true.
watch this hangout. He's not gonna watch this hangout. There.
I think his attention span is roughly one verse in length.
Yeah.
Jesus
Plus, he'll be
Christ.
too busy getting
Gold
ready
fish.
for TST tonight.
Oh yeah.
Oh, good grief.
I know that just.
Every now and then he impresses me. I mean, there was that hangout a little while back where he was able to do 2 + 2. And today
Wow.
he spelled crap.
Ooh.
CRAP, crap. So, you know.
Yeah, he
Wow.
spelled it
Yeah,
out
but-
to make sure that he was quoting me in that instance.
Oh.
Yeah, he was actually
Which-
reading it off.
Oh, that was a funny thing for him to quote, too, as far as I'm concerned. It's like, that's not the quote you'd want on your little thing, but okay, and crap is not actually a curse. I put that in as not a curse. I thought about it.
You will be burned by eternal hellfire, but I refuse to swear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing that's maybe a question I sort of asked myself. Sweary words. You know those naughty words that we're not supposed to say. And if you say one, you'll be burned in hell, okay? Okay, fine. It's just a sound that comes out of your mouth. But here's the thing. What does it say about bearing false witness?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Because much of that rant today, he was bearing false witness against Jade.
Indeed. Again.
Yeah.
Does the Bible actually say you can't swear, or does it just say you shouldn't take the Lord's name in vain, not the
Okay,
Lord's name in vain?
it's you shouldn't take the Lord's name in vain, but they don't really get into what that necessarily means, which
Okay.
it has led to some oddities. Generally, when you're dealing with somebody that's of Jewish tradition, they'll put a dash instead of the O in God because they won't even say God itself
yeah,
because, and the reason why is because it's so vague that there's a lot of arguments as to what it really meant, so they just kind of hedge their bets.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
shouldn't be swearing an oath. You should let
Yeah.
your yes be yes and your no be no.
Yeah, I was taught it's the difference between saying "God damn it" because you're mad or something, and saying "God damn you."
Yeah.
Oh, and I've got to tell you this because I posted the link to Gman's video in my G Plus because hey, why not? I was laughing at it. Now you remember what Gman said with his his inability to know how to spell your and your. So it's you're no Christian, YOUR no Christian. Rational mind said, what is G-Man saying about the quote no Christian unquote that Jade owns?
Yeah, I was thinking.
Okay. Yeah.
That was good.
Yeah.
Remember Nazis for the wine.
Yeah. Yeah. Or maybe
G-Man still
G-Man
doesn't
saying
get
that, oh dear, I hate, maybe G-Man saying that I own him.
I find G-Man just plain offensive, and the thing is, my hands don't work that well anymore. I have nerve damage in the right, and I have stroke damage in the left. And let's not make that stroke joke. I've had that 2 nights in a row. I'm tired of it. But I have stroke damage in the left, so it's very difficult for me to type at all right now. But he offended me enough that I actually decided to call him out anyway, and I had to type it in there, and I'm thinking I should just load Dragon because he's not worth all this effort. But at the same point, as far as I'm concerned, defending people that I think are decent people that happen to be Christians from somebody that's just, well, a dogmatic jackass, frankly. Yeah, I'm going. At that point, it's worth the effort. It's worth the literal pain in my hands to do so.
Yeah.
Normally, I say people who get pissed off about stuff on the internet, they need to find an outlet. G-Man needs an outlet outside of the internet. Apparently, he runs. Apparently, it's not very fast, but
No.
he needs to find something else.
He'll brag about, supposedly running in this or that or the other, and I'm like, but to what end? My wife actually does a lot of 3Ks, some 5Ks, and what have you, and almost all of them are charity related. Because my wife's a Christian.
I was going to say some of them involve zombies.
And some some do involve drinking, but yeah. Those
but
actually
you're an
support the local
atheist.
economy. Well,
Well,
yeah.
you're an atheist heathen. How are you married to a Christian? Don't you want to get rid of all religion? Can I just say, as a fellow atheist, why was I not sent the memo that we're supposed to want to get rid of religion?
I don't know.
Seriously, I am getting sick to the back teeth of never. How come the Christians get memos about what we're supposed to be doing and I don't?
Yeah.
Well, and apparently I worship gods, just not the Christian one, but I don't know which ones, and I wish
I am a god.
Squirrel god.
Yeah.
Squirrel god.
Oh, and incidentally, just in case, and I highly doubt it because, you have to leave his channel and he doesn't actually watch other people's videos, he just asks them to watch his. But in case G-Man ever does see this, the term you were looking for was agnostic apatheist.
Not anabolic.
No, not
atheist.
anabolic. That's point.
Anabolic.
That is hysterical.
I saw that in the Skype group, but I'd already gone to make my supper by then. Is that what he actually said?
Yeah, he called me. He said that I was an anabolic atheist.
Does that mean you're out of breath, or am I confusing that with something else?
I think he's wrote it out.
I don't know, man.
It means he's roided out. 13, are you roided out?
Well, there's two kinds of steroids. There's anabolic and the other kind, and I don't remember them because I've never been on.
Just
don't
go
do
for
drugs.
non-anabolic.
Okay, non-anabolic.
13, you're an Anadrol 50 atheist. Sorry.
Surprised you didn't call me Adderallic or something. That would have been even funnier. But you know,
He called you a steroid atheist, so I'm going to call you Anadrol 50 atheist.
All
That's
right.
the
Oh
most
yeah,
effective
those
steroid.
steroids, not. What am I thinking of then?
That's what I keep on. That's what I keep on. What's the threatening Gary? I'd get him so he'd stop bitching and moaning about his relationships.
Oh, I was thinking of anaerobic, wasn't I? We talking about being out of breath. Yeah.
I mean Gary, phony beetle maniacs, not Gary. Other Gary.
I need to
did-
go, guys. Thanks for the chat.
Okay,
And
take
I'm
care.
probably
Take care, sweetie.
and I'm probably going to cut this in one moment. But before you go, any final sentiment that you'd like to pass?
Go ahead, Fiona.
Fiona, please.
No, I think I've said everything I wanted to say.
Oh,
And
that's great to hear.
It's been building up for a long time because I've not really been saying much. And so that's why I've just gone on motor mouth mode today.
Well, I am delighted to have provided you that outlet, and have yourself a great day.
I will do my best. Thank you very much, people.
Bye, Fiona.
Night, night.
You're welcome. Take
Good
care.
night. Good night, Fiona.
Okay.
I would
Any
like to
further
say-
final thoughts, Dee? We'll go
Yes,
to you.
I would like to say, G-Man and your elk, thank you. You do more for atheism than any atheist ever does.
That's true. My wife often says that that her faith she'll never turn away from her faith because of some argument made by an atheist. It'll be the other Christians and their behaviors and words.
13, me. Big
Jordy.
dicks are bad for your health. Stay black.
Okay. Char.
I don't know why people in that neighborhood, like not looking out their windows, didn't call the cops or something. Like this crazy guy, like in the middle of a park,
Oh my God.
ranting.
Yelling and screaming to
Insulting.
himself as far
Does
as I know.
Does that not seem odd to anyone else? Like,
There were comments in the chat of people wondering when the van with the men in the white coats was going to pull up and carry him away.
I was waiting for the police to show up and shoot him.
Coming to take you away.
I was waiting for the
just
cops to show up and misconstrue him for stealing something.
Okay. Jackie should be at work, so I doubt she can actually say anything. But your presence is appreciated as always. Jade, do you have any final thoughts?
Well, I'd like to thank G-Man for the lulls. I've been sick for a few days, so this was extremely entertaining. Unfortunately, I can't download his Hangout at the moment, but I hope someone else downloads it in case it disappears for one reason or another.
Hint.
Yeah, hint. I have no intention of flagging it myself, but there are others who might do so. So if someone gets a chance to download it, please download it.
I'm usually against flagging for...
I am too. Yeah, and let me say for the record, I'm against flagging. Please leave it up because I want everyone to see exactly what G-Man is like. So that's my opinion, but obviously people will do what they want to do. But yeah, if someone can download it, that would be nice.
And at this point, I'm going to call the Hangout for those of you that watch. Thanks for watching. And G-Man, if you do end up seeing this, I'm going and just skip to the end like you generally do to get a summation. G-Man, you are singularly responsible for my son abandoning the notions of becoming a Christian. I'm sorry that you don't like this. I'm sorry that you're trying to blame everyone else for it. But this was you and your antics that caused this. Accept it. Move on. You are a horrible teacher. You're a horrible representative of Christianity and humanity in general. So just learn, compassion. Read that book and understand what it is to try to be Christ-like. The things like love thy neighbor means before you start running around touting yourself as being the only Christian sitting on a hill declaring who is and isn't valid within that title in that family. So, translation. I think to quote J.D. Kane, go fuck yourself?
Go fuck yourself.